how we live and how we work that only got stronger. And from where I sit at Daxco on the product team, just seeing the way that the YMCA fosters meaningful connections, that is one of those core truths that hasn't changed. And its response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the YMCA movement really solidified in a magical way around a clearer understanding of what their communities needed from the YMCA, and how fundraising and what it means to be a donor plays into that understanding. And as we've all witnessed and as we've all been a part of in some way, there's just been a number of ways that the Y has risen to the challenge and embraced that change. As you've seen in some of the recovery effort and the data that we've displayed through our Impact and Insights report, and maybe you caught the earlier session today with Christy and Constance. So while things aren't back to the pre-COVID levels, we've definitely seen YMCA's respond in a unique way and diversify their revenue, expanding their usual offerings to meet the need, and doing different things based on what's needed and making those connections. All of this is borne out in the continuing trend that we see of people donating, even while their membership was on hold, or donations from non-members or from folks that you've maybe never ever engaged with. And as we saw, the end of year giving in 2020 was higher than normal, and January of this year was a lot higher than January last year. So to me, that just speaks volumes to the deep connection that the Y has with its communities. And the way forward into the future is got to involve continuing to grow these connections with new people in new ways. And when we look at the future, and by its very nature, it's unknown, and there's a lot of uncertainty there. But one thing I've said a lot in similar discussions with our customers is that in that uncertainty, we've seen YMCA's rise to the challenge and become the change makers who create that future. And it's not going to be a piece of cake. Letting go of the old ways and trying and failing and trying new things. That's not easy to do, but it's also not impossible. And we've seen how that happens. So let's think about some of the ways that we might continue to grow and create that future. And just a quick shout out to anyone who joined recently. Just a reminder, you're joining Daxco's virtual booth. We're talking today about how to attract new donors, and we're getting into what we talk about when we talk about prospecting and how broad that can be. So when we start thinking about making the changes that will create that new future, one of the things on many customers' minds, and certainly on our minds at Daxco, is getting those membership numbers back to where they were before the pandemic, and then even growing beyond that. And that's likely the first thing that comes to mind when you see the word prospecting or hear prospecting, and that's certainly a very important component. However, in our work and our conversations over the past year, and looking ahead into 2021, our understanding of prospecting includes those non-members who you'd like to nurture into becoming a member, but it can certainly be much broader than that. We believe, and we know our customers like you believe, that anyone can be a prospect for anything. So maybe you have your programs team who needs to sell a new program offering. You're looking for a list of your kind of existing members that you want to target that to. So maybe they've registered for similar programs in the past, and you want to kind of treat them as a prospect for that new offering. Or maybe you have your development team, or maybe you are the development team, and you like to foster gifts from some of your long-term members. So they've been members for years, and you want to kind of nurture them towards a donation. So these are just a few examples of prospecting in one form or another. And the people that you're attracting as prospects, whatever those steps look like for them, these people deserve a top-notch experience. And it's not only that experience, but one that aligns with everything that you are as an organization and everything you're about. So how do you create that experience that feels natural? And how do you make that happen with a team who's already managing any number of other things, and who's responsible for a variety of activities? how do you set up an experience that's meaningful as well as scalable. So this is a few kind of key traits that we'll come back to again later, but I want to show it here just to get everyone thinking about this. So, I see these as kind of the core components of a prospecting process. So whatever flavor of prospecting you're working on or you're focused on, just kind of think through what you're doing today, and how is it meeting this criteria? If it's not meeting the criteria, why not? And so the recent work that DAXCO has done around prospecting last year and then continuing through this year, I wanted to walk through some changes that get us closer to meeting these criteria and making it a little easier for your teams to manage this process. So a bit of a review here. So in DAXCO operations, I guess it was last summer or so, we did a bit of an overhaul of the prospecting features. So we added some new ways to enter prospects and some new ways to view your prospects, but we also added new forms that can be used to collect new leads. And so here's an example of just a web lead form, just a few simple fields that you can configure, making it super easy for someone to identify themselves as a lead. So prior to this, all prospects that were entered into DAXCO operations as a quote unquote prospect had to be manually entered by your team. So this kind of opened the door and made it simpler for prospects to self-identify. And what you can see here is this form can be surfaced as a sort of simple, clean, branded web page on its own and maybe accessed through a tablet. It can also be used, and you can get the source code and the script and insert it into your website to make it kind of fit into an existing page. And so this is an example here of the YMCA of Greater Houston and their new website that uses this prospecting lead form on their site. So that's one thing just to touch on. This is probably chapter 1 in a lot of people's kind of prospecting story. So if you haven't taken a look at that, if you are a DAXCO operations user, take some time to look at that and see if that might help make it easier to attract some new donors. Here we're getting into what gets me really excited is DAXCO Engage. And so this is the product that I focus on here at DAXCO. And so thinking back to that last screen where we're looking at prospecting forms and ways to collect leads in an ongoing way, it's a bonus if you have DAXCO Engage, because you could establish ongoing groups and initiatives that will engage those leads as they come in. So here's an example of kind of a group that you can build. So if you're not familiar with DAXCO Engage, in a nutshell, a group is just a list of criteria of your membership base and your prospect base. In this example, we're looking at web leads who've come in the last 30 days, and maybe they haven't selected a branch that they prefer. And so what you're doing here is you're kind of narrowing down your focus on who you want to engage, and then from there you attach it to an initiative, and you can kind of systematically follow up on these leads as they come in. So it's not going to be your entire prospecting process in that one email. It's going to be the first step, but that kind of first touch point is often one of the most important. So we hopefully making it easier to make that an automated process that you can count on, so that you can focus on doing the things that only you can do. And because we're looking at group roles, and because we are in the context of NAYDO and fundraising, I do want to call out to a couple options we have through group roles as it relates to fundraising. So in this example here, I'm looking for likely donors who haven't given in a while. So there's a group role around pledges given. So in this example, looking for people who haven't pledged within the last 3 years, but also who have a very high or high donor indicator. So the donor indicator is a proprietary algorithm that DAXCO has created that helps predict the likelihood of a unit to give. So it looks at dozens of criteria about that person and kind of compares it to similar units across all the data that we have, and tries to make a prediction on how likely someone is to give. And so this simple group here with people who haven't given in the last 3 years, but they're high or very high. This is just right for just a kind of simple reach out. Let them know about ways that you're currently fundraising community and how their fundraising dollars can impact those efforts. So moving on now to something that's kind of in the works and has been in the works for several months now that we're super excited to discuss kind of bringing into the broader market through DexCo Engage is something we're calling Opportunity Playbooks. And so this is an expansion and kind of a deepening of what I mentioned earlier through initiatives. So there's kind of automated ongoing marketing campaigns that our customers are using. But you can think of Playbooks as sort of recommended stages and recommended steps for specific outcome-based opportunities. So it's like an initiative, but with more flexibility, as we'll see, but also they're driving towards some specific outcome. So in the example here, you'll see the 4 types. You can focus this playbook on membership growth. So this would be your traditional prospecting efforts. Fundraising growth. So that example I mentioned earlier, maybe you want to get a subset of people who are ripe to become donors, and you want to nurture them through this playbook where the outcome is a gift from them. There's program growth, so a new program offering, or maybe a fall sports season is coming up, and you want to be deliberate about how you get registrations for that. And then childcare growth. So these are kind of the 4 key types and categories of opportunity playbooks, and you'll be able to build what those stages and what those steps look like depending on the outcome there. Here's just an example of what that playbook might look like. So if you aren't a DexCo Engage user and are familiar with it, this should look in some way familiar to you. This is where you build out those communication touch points, those emails, those text messages, the tasks for your team to handle. But you'll notice something different here in that there are different stages. And so this is getting closer to nurturing people towards the outcome, having kind of a lineup of activity that kind of defines stage 1. And so here in this example, this is where we inform donors about our campaign, or we inform them where their money goes. And then there's maybe some steps where we nurture, we send some other types of communications. Maybe there's a phone call, just a touching base with these potential donors. And then kind of maybe that final stage is where those donation asks are made, and you can kind of keep people moving through these different stages. And there will be components of this that are automated, so you can always count on them happening. But then there will be stages and steps where it will require your team to kind of make a decision on, hey, should I move this one forward or should I keep them here? So kind of building off the initiative functionality, but allowing a little bit more flexibility and customization. And I already mentioned this too, but these playbooks can be really tailored and custom to whatever your outcome is. And in this example, we've been looking at fundraising growth, but it could certainly be applied however your team wants to do that. And it works very much like initiatives in that you kind of select your group. Who's your target audience? Something new that we're working on with Playbooks is the ability to select or target multiple groups. So maybe you have a kind of new member prospecting playbook, and you want to pull from multiple sources. And so you want your true web lead prospects to be in this playbook, but maybe you also want past members who have terminated within the last year, and you want to kind of nurture them in the same playbook. That's that level of flexibility is not currently what the initiatives were designed for, and that's kind of what led us to invest in these playbooks. Something else new would be just this concept of assigning leads out to people, so a lead management. So when I playbook, that scenario we were walking through, when that is launched and when that's running, those leads in that group will be assigned to the team that you identified, and this is a screen that they would see. So when I log into Engage, I see, hey, I've got a new lead here. Here's where they are in this particular opportunity. Here are some ways that I can quickly follow up with this person and kind of keep track of where they are. And if at any point I want to move them to a future stage. Maybe I had a conversation with this person, and they seem really likely to donate, but they need some more information. Or maybe I talked to them and now's not a good time, and I want to kind of mark that as a lost lead. That level of control is handled here. And again, that's something that with initiatives, with their sort of automated waterfall campaigns, that level of like individual control is not what that was designed for. This is what the opportunities will make possible for your team. And then of course, for anything that is designed to drive sales outcomes and to increase revenue, it's super important to show you the return on your investment. So a whole new suite of dashboards and reports based on these opportunity playbooks. So you can see things like your total leads. You can see where people are dropping out in which stage. You can kind of track conversions over time and why people are saying no, and kind of look at the high level view, but then also kind of drill down into the individual staff level to see how they're completing their activities, what sorts of tasks they're completing, what kind of notes are they logging, and all that. So that brings us back to kind of our kind of core competencies here with a prospecting process. Is it must be structured, flexible, repeatable, and reportable. So structured because you need something that you can count on, that has steps and stages that are deliberate, and it's something that will make your lives easier. And if you look at the research on anything related to sales prospecting or member joins, about 80% of those sales conversions happen somewhere between the 5th and the 12th contact. So it takes a lot of reach out and a lot of nurturing to get someone to say yes to whatever that outcome is. And no one here has time to send 8-10 emails to several dozen people every week. And so whatever you can do to automate those touch points, and then kind of sprinkle into that those more deliberate one-on-one conversations to help boost that. So that structure will help save you time and energy. Flexible, we've talked about that too. It's got to be a meaningful experience for everybody. But I think, again, you don't have time to do something different for everybody. So you need that sort of, with that structure, you need enough flexibility to kind of treat each individual as he or she needs to be treated based on that particular playbook and that outcome. And so it doesn't feel like every interaction is stamped from the same mold. It's got to be repeatable. So, we're looking for ways to make your lives easier, to set up systems that at the end of the day you can count on. And we know just from talking to a lot of our customers about what they do with prospecting today, that there are multiple tools, many external tools to their kind of core systems that are being used. And that's if anything's being used at all. Sometimes there's just an Excel spreadsheet and stuff's being tracked through that. So, it needs to be something that is easy to pick up and easy to continue and replicate across multiple branches or multiple campaigns. And then, like we just talked about, it's got to be reportable. So it needs to be crystal clear to your team and to your leadership that all your efforts towards these, whether it's a fundraising campaign or new member prospecting, all those energies and all that time and effort is worth it. Okay, that's kind of a wrap on how to engage new donors, and ways that having a playbook and a kind of a lineup of activities will help make it easier for you to engage these new donors. And then even beyond that, looking to attract new members through new prospecting features. Last thing I want to mention here before we open up to any questions, we are also offering a drawing, I believe, for a 6-month free trial of our virtual fundraising intern. So this will make a lot of that kind of persistent follow-up that I mentioned earlier a lot easier, and kind of essentially offload that to an artificial intelligence intern that will do a lot of the legwork for you. So in order to be entered for that, just book a a consultation with us through the main conference hub, and we'll be sure you're entered into that.